Hello and welcome to Que Viva. This is, I believe, the fourth installment, kind of technically the fifth installment of videos I've been making on Saint Ignatius's rules for the discernment of spirits. I get into the last three rules of his rules for the discernment of spirits for what he calls the rules for the first week. So that first week, according to the spiritual exercises, is a period of time. He calls it a week, a period of time in which the aim is purgation. The aim is to get rid of sin. The aim is to overcome that sin. There are more rules for another time in a person's spiritual life when they are attempting to draw closer to Christ through the scriptures, in a way that we might call this illuminative phase, where you learn more about Christ, and with deeper understanding, you desire to draw closer to him, and you do so. That has a different set of rules. These rules that I'm speaking of is for a person who just knows their life is so full of sin, they might not be able to see Christ all that clearly. And most of us find ourselves going through periods of time like this. And I think these rules are very helpful. And so I'm getting towards the end of these rules for the discernment of spirits of Saint Ignatius Loyola. And Saint Ignatius is going to speak in these last three rules specifically about the tactics of the evil spirit. A lot of us get excited about this topic, right? A lot of us love movies like The Exorcist. We love to hear about demons. It's sort of like this sense of there's this hidden world that we want to know more about for our own protection. But also sometimes we can just be curious about that whole world. I don't often make movie recommendations, but I'm going to make a movie recommendation. Rather than The Exorcist, watch a movie called Black Narcissus. Black Narcissus. They made a remake of it a few years ago. It's not as good. The 1947 version is a much better version of that movie. And I think it's one of the scariest movies of all time, right? Scary in the sense that if you really understand it, if you really understand the spiritual life, if you really know what to look for, you will see in this movie, all the way back in 1947, of course, that the story of these nuns, it's a convent of nuns who try to establish a convent up in the Himalayas. And the first half of the movie, in fact, feels like it's going to be almost this feel-good movie from the late 1940s. You know, it's one of the first movies they made in color. And it kind of has this sort of almost generic, not quite generic, but almost generic feel of a feel-good movie about these nuns who are going to work hard to make this convent work. And by the end of the movie, it's horrifying what has happened to their spirits, what has happened to their souls. And you can see the tricks of the devil being played on them. And that by the end, they have in so many ways failed at their attempt to create a good, happy place that would glorify God up in these Himalaya mountains. So watch that movie if you want to sort of see the things that can go wrong in the spiritual life. I find that to be much more scary than whether or not books will be flying off the shelves, whether or not somebody will be, projectile vomit that comes in these terrible movies about, people who are possessed by the devil. And I think Saint Ignatius gets this. I think Saint Ignatius, while perfectly acquainted with these more dramatic interactions with the evil spirit, he understands how the evil spirit can be tricky, can find a way to trick a person who's trying to do better, who's trying to avoid sin, trying to leave behind a sinful life. Saint Ignatius is really on top of this. And I think you can see that in his rules for the discernment of spirits, and you especially see it in these last three rules. I'm going to read real quick a previous rule that I talked about in some of my previous videos. And I want you to notice the difference in the language that he's using and the way he's talking about this, the way he gets much more poetic when he talks about the devil in these last three rules. So here's rule number 10, which is not one of the last three. Rule number 10, when one enjoys consolation, let him consider how he will conduct himself during the time of ensuing desolation and store up a supply of strength as defense against that day. Pretty straightforward. All right, now the first of the three rules today, which concern the enemy, the evil spirit, the enemy of our nature, which God has created to praise, reverence, and serve him. The enemy conducts himself. Oh, I should probably warn you, some of this is going to sound kind of sexist. Yeah, okay. The enemy conducts himself as a woman. He is a weakling before a show of strength, and a tyrant if he has his will. It is characteristic of a woman in a quarrel with a man to lose courage and to take to flight if the man shows that he is determined and fearless. However, if the man loses courage and begins to flee, the anger, vindictiveness, and rage of the woman surge up and know no bounds. In the same way, the enemy becomes weak, loses courage, and turns to flight with his seductions as soon as one leading a spiritual life faces his temptations boldly and does exactly the opposite of what he suggests, the evil spirit suggests. However, if one begins to be afraid and to lose courage in temptations, no wild animal on earth can be more fierce than the enemy of our human nature. He will carry out his perverse intentions with consummate malice. With consummate malice. Okay. Yes. Okay. This sounds sexist. People are going to be upset. The way that a woman is described here. Okay. Great. I can see that in the chat already. It sounds like it could be offensive to someone who wants to take offense. Right. Okay. So here's the idea. The reason the thing that Saint Ignatius is bringing up is just the fact that men are typically bigger and stronger and can exert their will in the world, against weaker people, and women are typically physically weaker. So because women are physically weaker, they've got to find other ways to be persuasive, right? They've got to find other ways to be persuasive. And, Saint Ignatius is just saying, guess who is the stronger between you and the devil? Guess who is stronger between you and the devil? It's you. You have been given a free will, and you get to decide what you are going to do. You get to decide how you will fight, and fight you must, right? You must fight the evil spirit. What will the evil spirit do? The evil spirit will attack you the way that, imagine like a small dog will attack you. He will bark. He will, if you turn your back on that small dog, that dog will chase you and nip at your ankles and could, in fact, hurt you, right? If you're not defending yourself. But turn around and stomp your foot and fuss at that dog, and the dog will back off. This is how the evil spirit is. And all too often, when we are tempted, we become weak and tired and sort of like we get tired of fighting. And we get scared of fighting. And we often think, okay, if I just give the devil a little bit, he'll be satisfied. If I just give the devil a little bit, he will, because feeling tempted is the worst, right? It's the worst feeling in the world. So if I just give into that temptation, maybe I'll get a breather. Maybe I'll get just a little breather, sort of like whenever you're really hungry. If you just eat a little something, you won't feel so hungry anymore. And so there's that temptation to kind of say, I'll be that way with the devil. I'll give him a little something. I'll give in just a little bit, and I'll be better off for it. I'll feel better for it afterwards. And in fact, if you remember how that works with the evil spirit and the good spirit, that little graph that I gave you in one of the earlier videos in the primer, the evil spirit wants you to feel good about doing bad things, wants you to feel pleasure for doing bad things, wants you to feel some rest, wants you to feel ultimately more comfortable when you do bad things. And he'll settle for even little bad things in the beginning, right? The evil spirit will settle for even small victories in the beginning so as to coax you into worse and worse and worse things. So just because you feel better after giving into a temptation does not mean that you, in fact, are better. Doesn't mean that you are somehow more spiritually healthy. Okay? So the evil spirit, according to Saint Ignatius, is like a woman this way. And he says, look, give the devil an inch, he will take a mile. Give the devil an inch and he will take a mile. Be strong, be resolute, be determined to be the person that God has made you to be. Whether you are a man or a woman and you take offense at the issue or not is not as important as the message that's here. And the message is the evil spirit is not as strong as you are. The evil spirit cannot force you to do anything. The evil spirit can only really try to wear you down. Henpeck can henpeck you into some kind of a response. The evil spirit does not have the power over you that it might feel like that he has. And the evil spirit is not somebody to give into. The evil spirit is not somebody to compromise with. The evil spirit is not somebody to give in hoping that you'll feel better. I think Saint Ignatius Loyola is right on here. I think he's right on. There's a whole lot more to say about this. It would take me probably 20 minutes to get to the bottom of everything that ought to be said about this. Uh, so there you go. I'll move on. Rule number 13. Our enemy may also be compared in his manner of acting to a false lover. Okay, so if you thought that St. Ignatius was being sexist with his first rule, then he's being sexist against men in his second rule. So relax. Our enemy may also be compared in his manner of acting to a false lover. He seeks to remain hidden and does not want to be discovered. If such a lover speaks with evil intention to the daughter of a good father or to the wife of a good husband and seeks to seduce them, he wants his words and solicitations kept secret. He is greatly displeased if his evil suggestions and depraved intentions are revealed by the daughter to her father or by the wife to her husband. Then he readily sees he will not succeed in what he has begun. In the same way, when the enemy of our human nature tempts a just soul with his wiles and seductions, he earnestly desires that they be received secretly and kept secret. But if one manifests them to a confessor or to some other spiritual person who understands his deceits and malicious designs, the evil one is very much vexed, for he knows that he cannot succeed in his evil undertaking once his evident deceits have been revealed. I think that's very good, sound advice. I think we often think of how important confession is because of the sacramental grace that comes from that, because of being forgiven and all those parts. But there's another piece of confession that makes a whole lot of sense, and it's the fact that you are sharing with someone the struggle that you have, the temptation that you have, and how badly the evil spirit loses when you make it manifest in words that you need to resist certain temptations. A good spiritual director, a good friend, someone who, number one, that you can talk to, but number two, who looks out for you. You may have a number of friends who love to hear you talk, who are good listeners, who are, interested in what's happening in your life. Okay. Not all of those friends are really your friends in the best sense of the word. Not all of those friends are looking out for you. Not all of those friends want to help you resist the evil spirit. Some of them, in fact, may even want to encourage you to be more like them. Some of them may even tell you things like, oh, wow, it must be so hard that you're struggling with these things. I wouldn't worry about it. Everybody struggles with these things. Yeah, no big deal. That's not the kind of friends that you need. That's not the kind of friends you need in this case. What you need is someone who is looking out for you, who is able to be the kind of friend that can tell you what you might need to hear. A good spiritual director, a good confessor, a good friend who's maybe not intending to be your spiritual director, just intending to be there for you through these struggles, and who might recognize that, like, let's say you're struggling with alcoholism, right? Where you struggle with that. And a good friend may say, like, look, we're young, we're having a good time. Who cares about all those things? Because they may want to not lose a drinking buddy, right? Let's say somebody who struggles with maybe the very same temptation that you have. Let's say you are a good and dutiful wife who has found herself attracted to someone, not her husband, right? And you're talking to your girlfriend and she says, I struggle with the very same thing. Tee hee hee. Isn't it funny how good looking such and such a man is? Tee hee hee. Like not taking it serious, how chaste we should be in our marriages, or how, serious we are about remaining, solely and only the person that we are committed to, only there. So we only have eyes for our spouse, that sort of thing. You may have a friend who just isn't helpful in this regard. And sometimes sharing it with that friend, sharing your struggles with that friend, they might try to talk you out of even seeing it as a struggle. That's not the kind of friend we're talking about here. Saint Ignatius describes this as the false lover is knocking on the door saying, hey, let's go out. Let's go out. Sneak out the back window. Let's you and I drive to a neighboring town where nobody will recognize us. And we can get away with who knows what. I want to take you far away from your husband or from your father. A husband or a father, you would think, would have every intention in the world of keeping you close, every intention in the world of keeping you safe, of keeping you his. And here's the evil spirit saying, yeah, but we can break away from that. We can get just a little bit of distance between you and your husband or your father. We can get a little bit of distance there. And that distance is going to be fun. That distance is going to make you feel free. Not so. Saint Ignatius is right on. This is a tactic of the evil spirit to get you far away from that person. So I think his remedy is exactly right. Bring it out to the light, to your confessor, to a good priest, to your spiritual director, to a good friend who's looking out for what's best for you. That's good advice. Okay. Rule number 14. The conduct of our enemy may also be compared to the tactics of a leader intent upon seizing and plundering a position he desires. A commander and leader of an army will encamp, explore the fortifications and defenses of the stronghold, and attack at the weakest point. In the same way, the enemy of our human nature investigates from every side all our virtues, theological, cardinal, and moral. Where he finds the defenses of eternal salvation weakest and most deficient, there he attacks and tries to take us by storm. So we might tell ourselves, I am doing just fine. I am a good, strong person. I go to mass on Sundays. I do the things that I need to do to make sure that I am in good shape. Okay. The evil spirit has not lost interest in you. The evil spirit is very interested in you. And so the evil spirit is going to look for ways to break in through your defenses. And it's going to find the weakest point to do so. Let me give you an example. I know a very good, virtuous woman. She is, let's say, advanced in years. She's had many children and has been, a good spouse to her husband, a good mother to her children. If you were to walk up to her and you were to show her pornography and say, hey, what do you think about this? Here it is. Look at this. I think this woman would be first disgusted, second defensive, and how dare you show this to me? Would try to help you see all of the wrong in your ways, and would be very strong about it, and would not for a second be tempted by something like pornography. Okay. This same woman, if she knows a little bit of gossip, though, she's interested in sharing that gossip, right? And I mean this, if you're watching, I don't mean this that you're a bad person, but gossip is what gets is one of those ways in which she is weakest. And so I sometimes get a phone call, Father, boy, do I have a story for you. And I try to tell her, I'm like, hey, whoa. I don't need to hear any gossip. No. I really need you to hear this gossip. You're going to want to hear this. No. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Please don't tell me any gossip. It's not good to repeat gossip. Okay, well, I won't repeat gossip. I'll just say it once. Right? I'll just say it once. Okay, yeah, I hear you, but I really don't need to know this. Oh, but you do need to know this. So you can pray for that person. Like, you can just see that this woman is desiring to spread some news that she's got. And I think that's where she is weakest. And that's where the evil spirit will worm his way into her heart and look for a way of corrupting what is otherwise an incredibly good woman, an accomplished good woman, right? So we have to fight that. That is what the evil spirit will do. And you'll think, well, gossip, the gossip's nothing compared to sins against the flesh. I don't know. The evil spirit will take what he can get, and he'll find a way to multiply those bads and make them worse and worse and worse. So this is how the evil spirit works. Looks for weaknesses in your defense. Looks for some way in which you are not armored up, some way in which you are not completely virtuous in your life, and will worm his way in there and corrupt you and make you bad. That's the tactic of the evil spirit that is like this military chief who is laying siege against the castle, right? So what ought we to do? Well, in each of these cases, we ought to do, I think the metaphor that Saint Ignatius pulls up here, or the simile, is very much the answer to the question, right? If the evil spirit is like this chief laying, siege upon a castle, strengthen your defenses where they need to be strengthened, right? Strengthen your defenses where they need to be strengthened. We will often tell ourselves, I'm very good at X, Y, or Z. So I'm just going to do more of X, Y, and Z. Let's say you're a person who's very good and faithful to certain forms of prayer. Now, I don't know. Maybe let's say you say the rosary twice a day. And you're like, this is a good thing. I say the rosary twice a day. I say the rosary in the morning. I say the rosary when I go to bed in the evening. I've got that on lockdown. I've got that sort of pattern in my life figured out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just constantly lean on the fact that I'm good in that way. That might not be what you need to be doing. That rosary, I'm not saying stop praying the rosary, don't stop. But I don't know that you want to say, I'm good that way. Therefore, I don't have to worry about things like gluttony. Therefore, I don't have to worry about things like pride. Therefore, I don't have to worry about whatever the other weaknesses I might have. I don't have to worry about those because I know I'm good in these couple of areas. The evil spirit is smarter than that. And he's working 24/7 to find some kind of weakness that you have. And so you ought to be very self-aware of your weaknesses. You ought to be on top of that. Remember when I was speaking about consolation and desolation, God often wants to show us our weaknesses. And so we'll remove some of those consolations and leave us in such a way where it might be more clear where our weaknesses are, starkly clear, in such a way that might prompt us to get out of that desolation, to work hard to leave the desolation, but to leave the desolation knowing that we've got work to do. And it's work that's going to come from God's grace, right? But work that we're going to put our back into, right? Remember the whole idea of pray as if everything depends on God and work as if everything depends on you. That applies here very much. So very much so. So be on top of your own spiritual life and know where your weaknesses are, right? So the same way that a castle would need to be fortified, and you've got to have somebody walk that perimeter and figure out where are the weak spots, who's often thinking like the enemy. Like, if I were the enemy, how might I attack this castle, right? That's not a bad practice. If I were the devil and I were trying to corrupt me, what are the things that I would look for? What are the ways in which I would find a way to break through my defenses and then shore up those defenses, right? Shore up those defenses. What are the ways in which I keep certain weaknesses that I have secret, right? So like the false lover, the evil spirit is going to constantly be saying, we can keep these secret, especially if nobody knows, is it really a sin? If nobody's aware of what a weakness that you had, I'm not suggesting we go around telling everybody, let me tell you about every problem that I have in my life. Sometimes people's conversion stories are often a way of, this is going to sound awful. I don't mean to convict anybody, but sometimes I hear people tell their conversion stories as if they're bragging just a little bit about how bad they used to be. Let me tell you how much I used to be able to drink. Let me tell you how much I used to be able to go out and have such a great time. I was good at being bad. Let me tell you, almost like they're bragging about it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, in this case, the evil spirit wants you to keep secret certain sins that you have that ought to be shared with a friend who can help you overcome them. And of course, the evil spirit will constantly be looking for you to not be fully defensive, for you not to be fully armored up, for you not to be fully engaged with trying to be better. And will say, look, just give in a little bit to sin, and I can, I'll back off. I promise I'll back off if you just give in a little bit. Well, the devil is a liar. The devil is secretive about his, the things that he's trying to get you to do. And the devil is relentless in finding some kind of weak spot in your life. Those are the last three rules for the discernment of spirits for a person who is going through that kind of purgative time in their life, to purge their lives of sin. The evil spirit is used to using those tactics. So if you're like most of us, who are in that stage of the spiritual life where we know that illumination, coming to know Jesus better, is probably hindered by our sinful life. And certainly unity with God is being held back by certain sins in our life. And so we wish to rid ourselves of those sins. We wish to strive towards good things. This is how the evil spirit operates. There are more rules for people who are more advanced in their spiritual life, a little bit closer to understanding all that. So there you go. There are more things to say, and I'm going to say them in later videos, but I think that about covers those three rules. I do want to say one more thing. If some of these hit home, if some of these feel like Saint Ignatius might have been talking to you, if you feel like Saint Ignatius might have written that rule just for you, It's never too late to grow in virtue. It's never too late to overcome those sins. It's never too late to take courage and realize that now you have spotted Satan by his serpent's tail. Now you have spotted him in your life, and you said, "Oh, I've got somebody living in my house that needs to be thrown out, the devil. I've got to throw him out." It's never too late to do that. Don't let the fact that you've maybe been fooled by the devil, I don't know how long, for how long. Don't let the fact that you've given in to sin, I don't know how many times. Don't let the fact that you've got these big weaknesses in your life somehow convince you that God doesn't love you, that God doesn't have a whole lot of grace. He's just dying to pour all over you. Don't let those things go. Don't let the fact that don't let the bad things make you want to let go the idea that God wants to save you and wants you close to him and wants you to be the person that he made you to be. You were created for greatness. You were created for goodness. You were created to be united with God. And here on this earth, we can be better prepared for it. All of us can grow in that way. Let me quickly look through the chat and see if I recognize any comments that might be worth addressing. Tom, good morning. God bless you. Hallelujah is already offended by, no, I know she's just joking. All right, let's see here. This is good. It is good. It's very good. Saint Ignatius is a master of the spiritual life. Sirach has a lot to say about friendship. It is true. Sirach is really good. That's a very good book of the Bible to read in regard to this. I think Saint Augustine wrote the Enchiridion, the handbook on friendship, which is very good to read. Seeking good counsel, true. Okay. So Tom says, trust me, Father John, I struggle with alcoholism and drugs most of my life. Thank God, by his grace, he freed me from these sins. Thank you, Jesus. God bless you. Really and truly, God bless you. Because I think so much of what the devil can take advantage of is part of our human nature. That we are made to be satisfied. We are made to be full, made whole, completely inebriated, right? The right word is really inebriated. We are made to be inebriated by God, that the blood of Christ might inebriate us, just completely take us over in such a way that we are knocked silly with God's goodness, right? We're made for that. And so what does the devil want to do? He wants to offer us a substitute inebriation. He wants to offer us some kind of inebriation in this world that will knock us silly, that will take away all of our worries, that will do all those things and yet leave us much worse off, leave us broken, leave us hurting the ones that we love. That's what the evil spirit is trying to do with us. And I think a lot of times when you find someone who has struggled with those kinds of things, with alcoholism, with drug addiction, those sorts of things, a lot of times those men and women who have overcome that are some of the best and strongest Christians that you'll ever meet, because they know what's at stake. They know what it's like to have fought that good fight. And they know that there's something much more clean and pure and better out there that they want to embrace instead of that poor substitution. And they get it. So God bless you, Tom. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for watching these videos. I'll have more to come. I'll try to make sure that the title of the video makes it clear that it's part of this series on the Discernment of Spirits. And I'll end the stream now. Thank you.